Hello and welcome to the small demo about using Amplication plugins to provision and deploy on top of Amazon Web Services infrastructure. As you can see, I have already configured our order management service within our Amplication project. It's a basic service and we're going to be instrumenting that with various plugins. If we scroll down here, we can see that we have a GitHub Actions AWS ECS plugin. We're going to install that one. Yes, and also we are going to install various Terraform AWS related plugins for provisioning the infrastructure. So install the AWS Core one, install the AWS Database RDS one, the ECS one, and lastly the repository ECR. After installing the services, we need to make sure that we configure them properly so they work together. Most of that has been done for you already by the default settings, but do make sure that the various configurations play together nicely. I'd urge you to read the documentation page around it. It goes into some of the prerequisites around authentication and authorization, as well as creating a secret for the environment variables and a bucket to store the Terraform configuration in, as well as it goes more into depth on what the settings per service are. So as we can see here, if you go to settings, you might want to put in like the correct bucket name. When all of these are configured correctly, you can build the service and you can see the pull request that the application creates with the Terraform code as well as the workflow. After about a minute or so, the service should have generated. If we go to that last commit here, we can see the build log for it, and you can see that the various plugins have been installed and that they should have been configured correctly. And it will create a pull request towards the GitHub repository it is connected to. If we go into this repo, for example, my production plugins, it should have created a new pull request. And that pull request should house the latest changes with the Terraform code and the GitHub workflow code. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, that is the case. The next step would be to go ahead and merge that pull request and check out the new version of the code locally. So we're going to merge the pull request. And after merging the pull request, the next step should be to check out the code locally. I have done so before on this terminal, and we just need to pull in the latest changes. So let's do a git pull. And that git pull, as you can see, pulled in all the workflow and the Terraform code. Next, we need to go to the Terraform directory and subsequently Terraform init. So we run the Terraform init. That initializes the backend, the bucket, and then after that pulls in the modules the setup is dependent on. If all goes according to plan, that should finish. Yes, and the next step would be to do a Terraform apply. After a second, that should also show you how many services it will add to the infrastructure. As you can see up here, it will plan to add 61 resources, and we can say yes. After about 10 minutes, the Terraform apply should have been completed and it should have added the 61 resources as you can see below. And in the meantime, I've gone ahead and logged into the AWS console so that we can see the provisioned infrastructure. We will go and check out the Elastic Container Registry, the Elastic Container Service, and the RDS. As you can see, the Elastic Container Registry now hosts a private repository. No images yet, we'll get to that soon. As well as a development cluster, because we called it development cluster, and within that service template, which is currently not in a running mode, but will deploy on top of that, as well as the database instance we provisioned. One last thing to do would be to create the secret that we talked about previously. I'll show you here. If If you go up here, it says step 1.2, create the secret, because we need the database configuration to be present in the database URL environment variable. I'll do that off screen and get back to you. All right, the secret with the environment variables has since been created. The only thing now left to do would be to create a container image and publish that in a ECS task definition. We're going to do that through the workflow that has been created for us via the plugin. You can see it in the Actions tab on your repository here. And we're going to go to that workflow. And within that workflow, we are going to manually trigger that. And then wait about 3 minutes for the workflow to run. All right, so some 3 minutes later, the workflow has concluded. And if we go into the workflow, we can see the different steps that it does. So it does the building, the tagging, and the pushing of the image towards the ECR, and also rendering and deploying the task definition to the ECS cluster. So let's look into that. First, we go to the container registry. If we refresh, we should see an image. And there is the image with the commit SHA. And if we now go to the cluster, we can see that we have a running task. If we go into that service, we can go to the load balancer here. Let's see. You see a healthy backend, and we should be able to find the DNS name for it. Let's go towards that, and you can see that we cannot get this path because it is a backend API, but we can show that if we go towards /GraphQL, we see the GraphQL playground for the backend service. And that concludes our small demo. Thank you for listening in.